Hello, my friends. Just an insane idea by Mark Carney to invite tens of thousands of parents and grandparents of new migrants to come over too. Because apparently there's so much room in our healthcare system that bringing tens of thousands of people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s to Canada, people who have never spent a dime of taxes here, never built this country, go straight to the front of the line. Medical migrants is what they are. Apparently, that's what Canada needs the most in 2025. It is shocking. I'll take you through the details. And CTV couldn't be more excited. They're positively erotic about it. But first, let me invite you to get a subscription to what we call Rebel News Plus. That's the video version of this podcast. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com, click subscribe, $8 a month. Not only do you get the video version, you get the satisfaction of keeping Rebel News strong because we take no money from the government, and it shows. Tonight, Mark Carney invites the aging parents and grandparents of third world immigrants to come to Canada for free health care. I wish I were joking. It's July 18th, and this is the Ezra Levant Show.
Shame on you, you censorious thug!
Look at this story from CTV. The headline, thousands of Canadians to start receiving invitations to apply to sponsor parents and grandparents. Isn't that a funny headline? Canadians sponsoring their parents and grandparents. Sponsoring what? Like in a Terry Fox run or something? Sponsoring like that? You would have no idea what they're actually talking about, which is new immigrants bringing in countless more immigrants in the third world through chain immigration to get free health care. None of those words, immigration, chain migration, free health care. It took a lot of skill to write that CTV headline. Let me read a little bit. Thousands of Canadians will soon receive invitations, that's lovely, to apply to sponsor their parents and grandparents as permanent residents. The 2025 intake will open for a few weeks starting July 28th for 17,860 potential sponsors who submitted an interest to sponsor form in 2020, according to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, in a notice published online Wednesday. And incredibly, this CTV story actually has live clickable links on their website to take you straight to the application page. That's so helpful to them. They really want you to get this done. And hey, guys, even if you're not one of the lucky third worlders, the parents and grandparents who can now come here in the winter of their lives, when healthcare demands are the most acute, don't worry. Mark Carney and CTV are happy to tell you about a scam called super visas. Let me quote. Those who don't receive invitations for the 2025 intake can apply for a super visa, a multi-entry visa valid for up to 10 years. The super visa would allow parents and grandparents to stay in the country for 5-year periods. Parents and grandparents visiting on a super visa can apply to stay an extra 2 years at a time while they're still in Canada. So to state the obvious, these are people who have not paid a dime in taxes in Canada in their whole lives. They haven't served the country in any way, let alone in the military, let's say. They're probably in their 60s or 70s or 80s or 90s. Many of them would have acute medical issues because healthcare is very weak in third world countries. They might well have chronic illnesses that have never been treated, undiagnosed illnesses, or simply things that it was impossible for them to afford to get help for. Now, no problem. Just got a super visa and come for a super 5-year medical holiday to Canada. Go straight to the front of the line, ahead of the people who have been paying into this system their whole lives. Look, we already have 1 million fake international students here for fake degrees from fake diploma mills. They're in line at hospitals already. Have you ever been to an emergency room these days? But I suppose you could say most of those fake international students are young-ish. What country in the whole world says, no, let's take the world's oldest and sickest people. That's our immigration strategy. You know, it made me think of something about 50 years ago, 40 years ago, called the Mariel Boat Lift. Do you ever hear of that? It was in the final months of the disastrous Jimmy Carter administration. Fidel Castro in Cuba played a trick on Carter. It was easy to do, saying, "Oh, do you want us to let Cuban dissidents go free? Do you want us to release our political prisoners? Sure, no problem." But of course, they did something else, didn't they? They emptied their prisons. They emptied their insane asylums. Now, of course, some of the people who came over were legitimate refugees, and some were just ordinary people, some of whom have done very well in Miami, of course. But around 125,000 Cubans and 25,000 Haitians came over in a matter of weeks, just en masse. Of course they weren't vetted. And how would you vet someone that Castro put on a boat to Florida? Here's what the South Florida Sun-Sentinel reported 5 years after the Mariel boat lift, after the dust had settled a little bit. You can see this old newspaper clipping. Most of the 125,000 Mariel refugees who sailed into Key West in the Freedom Flotilla have managed to adapt to American life, starting businesses, marketing their skills, and raising families. But their successes have been overshadowed by the actions of an estimated 16,000 to 20,000 criminals and other misfits who've contributed to an alarming increase in South Florida crime. On any given day, there are 350 to 400 Mariel Cubans in Dade County jails, according to a recent report by the Dade-Miami Criminal Justice Council. 20,000 criminals off of Castro's hands, out of Castro's jails, out of Castro's hair, and into Miami. It was such a shock to the system. Perhaps you've seen that old Al Pacino movie called Scarface, about a couple of drug dealers who sneaked into Florida amongst the refugees. The Mariel boat lift was a trick that Castro played on Carter. America was humiliated, of course. It was one reason why Ronald Reagan won in a landslide later that year. But this new Carney boat lift, this Mark Carney invitation to bring aging and infirm parents and grandparents over for a medical holiday at our expense, what do you call that? That's not a trick played by foreigners against us. That's Carney. I mean, Castro meant to harm America. What's Carney's excuse? Yes, sorry, these are not refugees. They aren't students. They aren't workers. They aren't business starters. This is Canada, or Mark Carney, I don't know who made the decision, deciding that we're not crowded enough, we're not overburdened enough, we're not poor enough. We need tens of thousands more queue jumpers. Oh, and by the way, have you heard a peep about this from Pierre Poilievre yet? Let me end with an interesting note. You may have seen my interview yesterday with Callum Darragh about Afghanistan now being run by the Taliban and what that's like. I was shocked when he told me that someone wanted to talk to him. I'm from Canada too. It was interesting to hear his stories in any event, but against the news that the British government secretly sneaked in tens of thousands of Afghan soldiers on secret flights and got a court to impose a super injunction so no one could even talk about it. That was nuts. Here's another news item that came out since then. This was just today. Vast majority of Afghans on kill list were bogus asylum seekers. Sources reveal as few as 1 in 16 people identified in the data breach had genuine claims for resettlement. You don't say. It's almost as if the super injunction had nothing to do with security or safety, but everything to do with politics and covering up government incompetence and malice. But look at this story. Just today, which goes back to something that Callum said. Germany deports Afghans after striking deal with Taliban. Flight understood to be part of Qatar-mediated deal as country cracks down on mass migration. Now, the new chancellor in Germany is trying to outflank the Alternative for Deutschland. He sees the rising movement of the populist right, so I think he's trying to get a little tougher than Angela Merkel. I'll read a little bit from the story. Germany has deported dozens of Afghans back to Kabul, including sex offenders and violent criminals, as part of an indirect deal with the Taliban. Early on Friday morning, 81 Afghan citizens, including some with criminal convictions, were loaded onto a Qatar Airways flight at Leipzig Airport. The flight is understood to be part of a Qatar-mediated deal between the German government and the Taliban, which could lead to regular deportation flights. They're sending them back. They're remigrating them. Germany is. At least 81 so far. That's a start. They needed a middleman, Qatar, which is a terrorist-friendly country, as you may know, because Germany itself doesn't have official relations with the Taliban, which run Afghanistan again, but now with American weapons. But who cares? Get them out. Remigration. Just get them out, whatever it takes. If Germany can do it, the UK can do it. And if the UK can do it, Canada can do it. But like I say, who will call for it? Will Canada's Conservatives? Stay with us for more. Oh, hey, I was going to interview someone in this segment, but there was a video I just wanted to show you. You know, it's sports season, summertime in Canada. People get outside, play soccer, play football, play rugby. And if there's girls' sports, don't be surprised if there's men trying to cheat by playing against the girls on the girls' teams. And there's really only one reporter in Canada who has the courage to talk about such things. It's my friend and colleague David Menzies. Here's his latest about men playing girls' rugby. Take a look.
David Menzies for Rebel News here at Eglinton Flats in Toronto. And folks, it's deja vu all over again, at least when it comes to female rugby. We were tipped off by those in the rugby community that there is a gender-bending male grifter here today. His name is Chloe Jorg. And evidently, this is quite a bruiser. We had some footage of Chloe sent along to us. Check out this play.
With speed. Oh my goodness.
And Trent will
What a
find
run.
the end zone.
That's it. That's a try.
That's an amazing run there by York for Trent.
What an amazing run here. Look at this. With speed.
Wow.
Going it. Boom.
One player, two players, three players taken down.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Look at the strength, look at the speed. How about looking at the genitals, perhaps? Maybe there's some Y chromosomes in that player. Maybe that's why Chloe goes through other players like a knife through butter. But in any event, we're going to observe the game. And then after, we're going to scrum Chloe Jorg. We're going to see what Mr. Jorg has to say. We know from doing a similar assignment 2 years ago, this month, as a matter of fact, in Fergus, when we tried to get Ash Davis to weigh in. Well, the video speaks volumes. Check it out. Why are you doing this? I'm David Menzies, Rebel News.
Hi. No, you're not really a part of this. We're having a team chat now.
Okay,
so,
I'm just trying to ask some questions, ma'am.
but this is not the appropriate time for that.
Why are
So
you
it's
allowing a
not-
biological male to compete against female
I'm
players?
not going to have a conversation with you.
Well, I'll talk to Ash then. Ash, do you take joy in injuring female rugby players? Are you lacking the skills to play with male players where you should be? You're a biological male, aren't you?
I got you. Right here. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ash, are you a misogynist?
Coming with me. Please leave your please. Back up.
Hey, watch it. You'll be charged with assault.
Get a child. Would you mind leaving?
Mr. Ash, the governing body for rugby, World Rugby, says men should not compete.
Trans lives matter.
Wow, really?
All lives matter.
All lives matter. All lives matter. Human rights matter.
You don't have a problem.
You can leave now.
Human
Yeah,
rights
thank you, sir.
issue.
No, thank you.
This is a human rights issue.
Oh, okay then.
We live in Canada. All rights, human rights for everybody. Trans matter.
What about the...
Trans rights matter.
Yeah, so all of the females, the real biological females on the field that day, were hysterical. Two of them were actually crying. I think that speaks volumes about the indoctrination, the fact that we're the bad guys for standing up for females and female sports and female shelters and female prisons. because these people, in the name of diversity, they are welcoming in a male invader to their safe spaces. Unbelievable. Anyways, my cameraman Efren Monsanto and I, we're going to sit down, we're going to watch the game, and then we're going to try to get some answers afterwards. Mr. York, can I ask you, why are you playing with the ladies? Sorry. David Menzies with Rebel News.
Sorry, can you?
Sorry.
Yeah, can you get off?
Oh, I just.
No, we don't. We don't want
means
to.
no. That's
But-
the boundary. We said no. Goodbye.
Well, World Rugby rules says no to men playing with women. Can you answer for yourself, Mr. York?
Yo, bro.
Can you please? We don't want to talk. We don't want to do anything.
He hasn't said anything. I'm talking to him.
She has not.
She doesn't want to
And
talk
she doesn't
to you.
want
Okay.
So please get off.
How do I know that?
Because
she said
we
no,
are on-
goodbye.
Can you
What?
read her body language? She doesn't want to talk
I'm
to
in
you.
a public park right now.
Okay,
so-
we are saying no.
Yeah.
No means
Okay,
no.
then.
Leave.
Okay, why are you not concerned that
No,
he's taking
no,
away
we're
a
not.
spot from a real woman?
We're not concerned
She
about
is
her.
not.
That's a biological male, isn't it,
Please
ma'am?
get
He is
off.
not.
Huh?
Leave. Leave. Why are you?
What?
Yeah, we're
Why are
not,
you
we're not,
here?
we're not going to do this today, guys.
Oh, okay.
We're not doing
well,
it. Thank you.
but World Rugby says this
we
is
don't
against the
care.
rules.
Leave.
You don't
Leave.
care what the international governing body has to say?
We don't want you here on the sideline.
Please exit.
I don't think so. Hey. Oh, now we got an umbrella. Where is the ref? Why isn't the ref enforcing World Rugby rules?
Spectators
I'm
need
not
to be
gonna
on the
respond to
far
that.
side.
Well, it's a fair question.
Spectators
It's not
need
a
to be
fair
on the far
question.
side.
How is it not?
We're not doing this. I do need you on the other side of the
Well,
field.
who are you?
I need you on the other side of the field.
Okay,
we are
then.
having spectators on that side.
Mr. York, would you like to comment, please?
I think you also need to keep going because there are some minors here. Chloe, go that way.
Okay.
Chloe, that way.
Chloe. Boy, you females are really indoctrinated, aren't you? Why is Mr. York a coward? Why won't he come on camera? Pardon me?
I'm a media too if you want.
Oh, okay
I
then.
can do a bad advice for you if you want, so
All
get
right.
out.
Why get it? I'm in a
Get
public
out.
park.
Get out. We have a game to play.
Hey,
so get
your
out.
hands
Get
off
out.
me. This
Get
isn't a rugby
out.
game.
Get out.
You touch me again, I'm going to
out.
call the cops.
Get out.
Okay?
You're also
Get
shoving
out.
it into
Who are
his
you?
face.
Get out.
Please.
Who are you? The coach? Are you the
Search on
coach?
the media. Search on the media.
Huh?
You're gonna see.
So, sir, are you the coach of the Toronto Nomads?
I'm one of them, yeah.
Okay, then. How do you feel about this? That, this team, Scarborough, is using a man. Isn't that, unfair?
I'm not too concerned about it.
Well, World Rugby, your international governing body, is concerned about it. They say that men cannot play with females.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, why are we watching the rules being broken here?
That's not the rules in this league, so.
Oh, you're not under the auspices of the international governing body?
Ontario Rugby.
Okay. How do your female players feel about going up against a man?
I don't know. I can't speak for them, and you can't speak to them, so.
We see an invasion of female.
Bigot.
Oh, how am I a bigot, sir?
How are you a bigot?
Yeah.
You're not allowing people to be part of team sport in a place where they're comfortable.
Well, then why isn't he with the men's team?
Sport, amateur team sport where they're comfortable.
He's not excluded. There's a men's team, right?
That's not the point. I'm telling you, they're comfortable out here. They're playing. They're happily playing a sport with other people who are happy to play with them. And what the business is it of yours?
Sir, 'twas ever thus that the sports, with the exception of equestrian and auto racing, have been divided by the sexes. This is a full contact sport, and you have no problem with a biological man.
Definitely what we should do always forever. That's what you're suggesting?
For safety reasons, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I can show you some women out here who could kick the out of you, who could actually destroy you and destroy half the men out here because of their size and strength.
What about Mr. York? Can they do that to Mr. York?
I don't know who this Mr. York is.
Number 19, sir.
Couldn't care less.
You couldn't care less.
Go f yourself. Go f yourself, you prick.
Who are you?
You're just giving me content. F off.
Huh? Oh, that's not very ladylike.
Wait, you got nothing to do with this. All you're trying to do
touch
is
me.
antagonize people and get them into argument.
No, I'm just trying to get them to follow the rules of World Rugby, sir.
Oh man, what do you know about World Rugby?
I know that's a rule. Men can't play with women. What do you know? Who are you? The only time these rugby players got passionate was when they were physically assaulting us and even grabbing the phone of my cameraman, Efren Monsanto, and throwing it into the bushes. We retrieved it. Why aren't they passionate about following World Rugby rules? You saw I was speaking to that coach who has no problem, and he appears to be the coach of the Toronto Nomads, the team that just got smoked, by the way, by the Scarborough Aces. He has no problem. He called me a bigot. You know what I think a bigot is? I think a bigot is breaking the rules to allow a biological male to compete and injure biological females. And what I say is this: where are the feminists when it comes to this egregious and outrageous stance we have? Where are the rugby officials? Well, I think they're all in when it comes to radical transgenderism. And it is amazing. We are seeing blowback against transanity, as I call it, in the UK, in the US. Remember back in February where President Donald Trump, via executive order, restored Title IX. But in Canada, it's alive and well. I should point out, and I think this speaks volumes, if you look closely at the jerseys of the Toronto Nomads, on one side, there is the Pride Progress flag. Now, why would that be? Why is a rugby team wearing the Pride Progress flag in July of all times? I mean, Pride Month was in June. This sport, at least in Ontario, at least in Canada, has been colonized. I think that there is so much indoctrination that they're all in. And two things come to mind. First of all, this garbage ends tomorrow if all those players on the Toronto Nomads and all the female players on the Scarborough Aces take a knee and refuse to get on the field, right? They won't do that. The second thing is, as you can see, folks, the most passionate people here about allowing a gender-bending male grifter to take the field against females are women. You know, this isn't on men. I mean, that coach might be one of the exceptions, but this is on women actually going to bat to allow the fox into the hen house. And I gotta wonder, maybe he's right. Why am I so passionate about this? I don't have daughters. I'm not involved in any kind of rugby program. And clearly, the people here don't want a white knight coming to their rescue. It looks like this province, this country is so indoctrinated that allowing misogyny on the pitch is actually considered to be a good thing. Unbelievable. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. If you've had it up to here with transanity, that intersection where radical transgenderism collides with insanity, please go to transmadness.com, transmadness.com. Kindly sign the petition. Let those in charge know that this is completely unacceptable.
That's David, bravest journalist in Canada. Hey, I want to tell you about one more thing that we've started. You may recall that we just launched something called The Buffalo. So once a week, we're going to have Western-themed live stream. Well, today, we started something called Rebel Roundtable. That's a great name. And every week, we're going to have a couple of panelists from other media, other independent media, other citizen journalists, other people with our point of view who just don't work for Rebel. So every week we'll have two Rebels and two new panelists. Today was the first day. Let me leave you with an excerpt of Rebel Roundtable.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News Roundup panel. Yes, you heard me. It's something new and we think it's improved. On this, a Friday, July 18th, 2025, I'm David Menzies. I'll be joined by my beloved co-host, Sheila Gunn-Reid. And we have two extra special guests with us today. In studio with me is Richard Serrett. He is the host of the Richard Serrett show. Fancy that. What a coincidence. Also out west, we have Rod Giltaca. He is the CEO of the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. He's also a radio and podcast host. And quite frankly, it's new and improved, like I said, folks, hopefully improved. We really don't know what we're doing today, but here's the good news. We're not flying a jet craft. We're just broadcasting. So if anything goes off the rails, no harm done. So without further ado, I want to say hello to Sheila somewhere north of Edmonton, Alberta. Yes, it is possible. As well as Rod and in studio, Richard Serrett. Thank you all for being part of this brand new panel discussion.
Yeah, it's exciting. We sort of tested this out on Wednesday, and I described it very much similarly to how you described it. I'm sort of learning how to fly the airplane while it's in the air, but and taking along 3 of my friends with me. For those of you who want to get involved in the show and support the work that we do, there's a couple of different ways. And if you have questions for our panelists, that's a great way to do it. If you're watching us on Rumble, thank you for supporting Rumble. They're a great free speech platform. Their paid chats are called Rumble Rants. Leave a paid chat for us. You might just see it read on air. And likewise on YouTube, their paid chat is called a super chat. You can do the exact same thing over there. And if you are moved by the spirit to support the work that we do on the recorded version of the live stream, you can also leave a comment. Their paid comments over there are called a super thanks. So that's it. David, I'll turn this over to you because I think we only have our guests for about half an hour. And I think we want to be conscious of their time. I think today's panel is going to be about crime and how the Liberals have failed in their efforts to, well, have they made actually any real efforts besides coming after the wrong people in the last 10 years? Sounds like they're going to do more of the same. So we've got some clips, and I think we'll be responding to those, but I'll turn it over to you, David.
No, you are so right, Sheila. The headline du jour is Canada's crime wave is increasing under Liberal rule. Yeah. Knock me down with a feather. So much for elbows up. It's more like hands up if you're lucky on the streets of our great Dominion. Why don't we throw, guys, to a clip of Prime Minister Carney responding to this whole idea of violent offenders. Well, basically, the police, through no fault of their own, it's really the courts. It's catch and release, isn't it? As soon as they're picked up, they go through a revolving door at the courthouse. And Mr. Carney was asked a question about this. Let's see what he had to say, and let's see if anyone's buying what he's trying to sell.
Hi, my name is Simone Gavros. I'm with CHCH News. My question is more of a local question about crime. Within the last few months, 2 random innocent bystanders were killed in 2 separate shootings. And in the latest shooting on Friday, that suspect is a 17-year-old who police are still looking for. There's also a lot of concern when it comes to repeat offenders. My question to you today is, what is your government doing to keep communities, including Hamilton, safe when it comes to gun violence?
Thank you very much for the question. And my sincere condolences for the victims of this, the direct victims of these crimes, their families, but also for the communities and the concern and anxiety that horrible crimes like this create. One of the things the federal government is doing, and we are making a huge emphasis on this, is to control our border better, because I suspect, and we'll see when this individual is caught, that gun came from the United States. Vast majority of firearms, legal firearms, firearms used in crime come across our border. And so what we've been doing in recent months is making very large investments in controlling those borders much better. We have to do more, but we're talking thousands more CBSA, Border Service Agents. We're talking drone surveillance, helicopter surveillance, working more closely with the United States on both sides of the border, both elements of the border, including addressing the scourge of fentanyl. The second aspect to your question, which your question touches on and the tragic situations touch on, is bail reform. And the importance of bail reform, particularly with respect to repeat offenders. We have commitments on that. We're working with the provinces on those issues. I'll be meeting with the premiers next week. I'm sure that's one of the elements that we will discuss, and you can expect legislation from this government in the fall.
We've got to go to Rod on this one, because I can see him nodding, and I think he's having the exact same thoughts I'm having about this stuff. Go ahead, Rod. I think I know exactly what you're going to say, but maybe you'll surprise me.
Well, I think we would all be surprised if the Liberals actually did anything, right? We've had 10 straight years of rhetoric about victims and condolences and all the rest of that stuff. And the Liberals, I don't mean to be partisan, it's just a fact. They've unleashed a crime wave and a wave of violence unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the country. So there is a little bit of signaling that's been going on with Carney and the rest of the Liberals that they may take their foot off the gas on persecuting licensed gun owners and pursuing only licensed gun owners' firearms while leaving criminals alone. But I guess we'll have to see, and certainly legislation that puts repeat offenders behind bars or worse, in my opinion, would be welcome.
Rod,
sorry, I just want to jump in because you know how I love guns. But it is interesting to hear the Liberals finally admit that the majority of crime guns are coming across the border that the Liberals have left basically like a sieve. It's a rare moment of honesty, but will they stop pursuing us? I don't know.
I don't know. There's a real good case right now for the Liberals in the position they're in to roll out grandfathering. And so a lot of gun owners would be like, that's not good enough. I want all the bans gone. These people are not going to stop the bans. We're going to be very fortunate if they don't move forward with the buyback. But there are a lot of good reasons for Carney to start the pivot. And this is sort of what I'm hoping is actually happening. The pivot away from licensed gun owners, because for a buyback, they're going to spend probably $5 billion when the country can least afford it, which of course blows up all of his fiscal aspirations. At the same time, he wants to stop the division because the division is going to cost the Liberals probably 2 provinces in the next few years if they don't turn it around. Like, there's a lot at stake for him to back off on a variety of different things. Energy, right? Stopping energy projects, but guns too. So if they stop harassing us, let us use our firearms, even if they don't allow more in the country, save all that money, turn on the criminals, they could really pull their reputation out of the fire. Not that I'm advocating for them, but that's a real option they have in front of them.
You know, Rod, if I may, I have a follow-up question for you, and then I want to get to Richard Serrett here.
Yep.
I was astonished, to build on Sheila's point. There was some incredibly unvarnished honesty in Prime Minister Carney's remark, that being his speculation that this was probably an illegal gun from the United States. Isn't he making your point? Isn't he making the point of responsible gun owners? For more than a decade now in Canada, these Liberals have been going after Saskatchewan duck hunters, whereas gangbangers in the inner city are getting out on parole with charges as severe as attempted murder. So when he said this was probably an illegal gun, haven't, Rod, you and your ilk been saying that for more than a decade now?
Well, not only us, but police forces from across the country, including the National Police Federation, right? The union that represents the largest single police force in the world, which I think is the RCMP. They have around 20,000 officers in their union. They said the same thing. They said the same thing on May 1st, 2020. Well, whatever, right? A week later about the bans. So it's not just us. It's funny, it's when police forces across the country are using the gun lobby's talking points, so to speak, you should probably look into it because something's a little weird there.
Wow. So, Richard, to Rod's point, do you think this is the beginning of a pivot of the Liberal government? They're maybe going to get away from this egregious and outrageous gun grab, going after legal and responsible citizens who are hunters, sport shooters, and they are finally recognizing the problem that the vast majority of gun crime is being committed by criminals that don't register their guns in the first place. Fancy that.
Well, one would hope this is a pivot. If it were coming from any other party, I might be willing to, accept that. But this is the Liberal Party. 10 years, tell people what they want to hear, and then do whatever you want anyway. This is just a part of this mass demoralization program that they have been involved in for the last decade. On the campaign trail, they'll sometimes occasionally will sound reasonable and conciliatory, and then they'll pivot the other way. So it's very hard to take anything this character says at face value. Yes, he's talking the talk. I mean, I was listening to those words, this robotic performance. It's like he's trying his best to behave like a human being, like insert trite apology or condolences here. I can't take this individual seriously. So, and this idea of, more drones and more helicopters, you're not gonna find illegal guns with helicopters or drones. You've got to look into container ships, container compartments and so forth, and trains. And let's be honest, this is the tough one. You have to be willing to concede that a lot of these guns are being smuggled across Indian reservations. Are they gonna clamp down there? I hardly doubt it.
That's 100% true. And of course, we know, I can tell you from Indian reserves in Ontario, Brantford comes to mind. Every single rule in the Smoke-Free Ontario Act is broken. Sales to minors, signage, people smoking indoors, you name it. It's a hands-off situation. The OPP will not go into it. And Ron, to Richard's point, that is a fact that guns are being smuggled through native reserves. But is this a third rail issue for the government and law enforcement when it comes to doing something tangible to stop the illegal gun trade?
Well, it's funny because our political adversaries, and including the Liberal Party certainly under Justin Trudeau for a decade, had everything at stake was we have to somehow tie licensed gun owners to our failures on public safety. So that's been going on forever. And to admit, I'm extremely cynical after having to witness this federal government for 10 years straight, right? But I think Carney, he ran on, like now this boss is not the same as the old boss. We all have our opinions about that, of course, right? But he has done a few things, like he didn't oppose the by-election in Alberta for Pierre Poilievre. He's talking about doing things differently. Now he's taking this approach, pivoting away. If he cancels the buyback and does grandfathering, which we're encouraging them to do, because we have to at least keep possession as a first phase of those firearms, of a first phase of our plan, we have to keep them. If he does things like that, then, he might be, and I'm not holding out any hope, look at what they do, not what they say, but he might be thinking, I'm going to come up the middle. So I'm going to do a couple of things, roll back a few things over here. I don't know if you do that with energy, and that's critically important for Canada, but you never know. We might get something out of him, but just because he wants to survive, maybe look at a majority in 2 years or 18 months, we'll see. But it's a strange time in Canadian politics for sure.
What about that, Sheila? Is the Prime Minister maybe doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, i.e. future political gain?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's going to save any sort of hard feelings in Alberta and Saskatchewan. I think the ship might have already sailed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the Liberals are selling to Westerners. They're just not going to buy it. But it might sort of bring some of those disaffected people back into the Liberal fold. I can see him doing that in efforts to regain a majority in 3 or 4 years or whenever that is. Hey, let's move ahead to this clip out of, looks like Brampton.
No, knock me down with a feather. There's crime in Brampton.
Brampton. It's from Canadian Crime Watch. It's a shooting. You know what? And what is so startling about this clip is that it's not all that alarming anymore, because we seem to have, I did it again before I jumped on air. I Googled Toronto shooting. And then there's like 4 different ones that come up just over the last 24 hours. And so this is becoming routine in parts of the country where we see these shootings caught on film, and then they're just broadcast, and I start to lose track of which shooting I'm watching. But this is out of Brampton, caught on video, July 11th. 2 suspects approach a home before one of them opens fire. Broad daylight, holy cow.
Unbelievable. But, not really, Sheila. Richard, I want you to weigh in on this. As Sheila referenced, the idea of this having not under cloak of night, but in broad daylight, it looks crazy. Literally like high noon. Look how brazen they are, especially in this day and age. That maybe half the homes have security cameras. And there's the proof in the pudding right there. In Brampton, for goodness sakes, even the mayor, Sneaky Patrick Brown, he's under 24/7 police protection. If there was ever an argument for bail reform, parole reform, isn't that it?
Well, let's not jump to conclusions. In some cultures that he may have been celebrating a wedding. So, let's just not jump to conclusions. Yes.
Shame on me.
In fairness, that could be my culture.
How far back? Where do we start? Yes, we can change bail reform. Let's just, rip up the entire 10 years of liberal faux pas when it comes to, the judicial system. Once we correct that, then we have these incredibly morally obtuse judges to deal with. So this is not an easy fix. And it's not just about bail reform. It's about, dare I say, immigration reform. It's about bail reform. It's about, far be it for me to agree with Doug Ford, but, instituting a castle law in this country and dealing with, the way that we vet judges. It's a very complex problem that's going to take a generation to unwind, I fear.
Rod, I want to go to you based on what Richard has said. First of all, I got to say, my heart pines for the good old days in Brampton when we only had to deal with sword fights. Now it's handguns. But this whole idea of castle domain laws, we had a story last month in Vaughan, Ontario. It was 4 thugs who showed up to steal a Lamborghini, and the homeowner got out, fired a warning shot. Well, he received more weapons charges than the thieves, and it was 4-1. He wasn't aiming at anyone. Can we get serious about this? Because I don't know, either law enforcement isn't all that serious, and I referred to that Toronto police officer that said, hey, can you leave your keys accessible to a thief so there's no bloodshed? I don't know. I think it's egregious when you are in your own home. That is the end of the finish line. And if you're being attacked in your own home, then what are you supposed to do? Rod, what are your thoughts on stronger castle domain laws in Canada?
Well, the self-defense with a firearm is very complicated.
Yeah.
Because firearms are heavily regulated in Canada. And as I like to say, you can defend yourself with a pipe wrench or a firearm, and that's equally completely fine. It's just there's not an entire act around the use, storage, transportation of pipe wrenches, right, where there is with a firearm. When it comes to the fella in Brampton, we did a thing about this on our television show and on our podcast as well. His mistake was discharging a firearm in a residential neighborhood, right? That's why he's in trouble, not that he resisted the theft of his property. So that's why he got in trouble. He could have maybe pointed the firearm. He had lawful excuse to do that, in my opinion. But anyway, it's these cases can tend to be complicated. But I will say one thing: he still has his car, so that's an important part of all that. But yeah, it's Doug Ford came out and talked about castle doctrine. What he said is accurate. You have nowhere else to retreat when you're in your own home, nor should you. And you can actually get away with defending yourself in your own home completely, no matter what you use, as long as your actions are reasonable. But again, it's complicated, and the only advice that I'd have for anyone watching is just look into self-defense law, look into a little bit of case law, like educate yourself really, really well, and then that way you're probably in a better position to deploy whatever method you deem appropriate in the circumstances and not get into trouble. But there is a problem with the judiciary, and there's a problem with the police and with the mainstream media as well when it comes to people defending themselves from, you know, sexual assault or murder or assault, common assaults, or having their things taken. And that's taken decades for us to get to this point where we think that that's inappropriate. But I think situations like this and the talk that we're having is pushing it in the other direction, waking a lot of people up. So I think there could be changes in the future.
Sheila, I want to get your thoughts, because contrary to what Rod had to say, I remember when I was with Sun News, one of our biggest stories was the so-called Spice Man. This was a restaurateur fending off a burglar in his establishment, not using a knife, not using a gun. He threw spice at him. And I believe he was charged with using a noxious substance, spice, for goodness sakes. Yeah. Sheila, you know, when I hear these stories, I don't think the politicians and the police brass have the pulse of the general citizenship.
Well, and I think there's a problem too about a criminal code that spans the length of our entire country that is applied differently depending on the province that you're in. So that would absolutely never happen in Alberta, that someone is charged for throwing spice in efforts to defend themselves. It depends also on the prosecutor that you get. I mean, in Alberta, we heard cases of farmers who and this Eddie Maurice, the process for him was truly the punishment. He fired a shot. He was home alone with his little girl. She was a toddler. Some dirtbags broke onto his property. He wings them, and then he gets in trouble. Another case where the dirtbag was winged by the farmer, and then that guy turned around and sued the farmer for injury. We changed the law in Alberta so that if you're in the commission of a crime and you get hurt on someone else's property while you're trying to steal from them, that you can't sue them. Imagine the gall of these criminals. But also subsequent to that, because all of a sudden we're seeing a shift, a man had his house broken into in Red Deer, shot and killed the guy. Not a charge was laid. And so it really has to do with the political will of the government. Doug Ford can talk about Castle Law all he wants, but he also is the guy who's in charge around there. He could actually do something about it to make it a little bit tougher for the criminals to get away with the things they're doing.
Great point, Sheila. And speaking of Doug Ford, why don't we pivot here? Doug Ford now telling Pierre Poilievre to be more liberal for electoral gain. Ford was telling the Poilievre conservatives, avoid the hardcore right wing. His words. I'll go to Richard first. This is rich, Richard, because by my math, Poilievre got over 41% of the vote in the last election. That is normally good enough for government. We all know what happened. The NDP cratered. NDP supporters left their own party, much like NDP leader Jagmeet Singh left his own party. And a lot of those votes went liberal. That's why I think this was really an anomaly. But I find this galling that Doug Ford is lecturing Poilievre to be more liberal. I think that's the last thing we need in this country.
Well, I'd like Fat Trudeau to defend his or to define his terms here. What does he mean by a hardcore conservative? Does he mean men with wedding tackle in women's rape shelters or in the swimming pool with minor girls? Does he mean that the conservatives should abandon that position? Does he believe that hardcore conservatism means that we should just open the floodgates and become the third world by inviting the third world? What does Doug Ford mean by abandon hardcore conservatism? What is, I mean, there's nothing conservative about Doug Ford. Bob Rae, by comparison, when he was the premier, might constitute conservative with comparison to Doug Ford. So I don't know what this guy's talking about.
Oh, yeah. NDP leader Bob Rae back in the day, he'd look like a fiscal conservative today, much as, he received the controversy back then. But Richard, I want to also weigh in on what is the unspoken strategy here? There is so much speculation that Doug Ford, I guess he's tired of being a big fish in a small pond. He wants to be the leader of the federal Conservative Party. I think if I start seeing Doug Ford taking French lessons, I'm going to be terrified. But is that the end goal here, and constantly calling out Poilievre?
Yeah, the end game for the progressive wing of the Conservative Party, just as it is with the Liberal Party, is to gain power and to stay in power and hold on to power and reward your friends while in power. Occupy space. At the very moment, what this country needs is a disruptor like a Donald Trump. Yeah. He wants to, I mean, if you huddle with PC MPPs for any time, and I've spent, hours with them in backyard barbecues, they talk about, well, if we do this, if we offend this group, we won't get elected. And excuse me? I don't care about, your job security. We need fundamental radical surgery in this province. So I don't care if you get elected or re-elected. If you offend people, just, do what needs to be done. Act on principle.
Rod, what say you? Does the Conservative Party of Canada have to rebrand itself as Liberal Light in order to form government?
I don't think so. I think all we need to do is look back one election cycle and see the story of Aaron O'Toole. And
I wrote it down.
Which is interesting, right? Because we all watched that. And I will say this, and this is sort of my position on that. Aaron O'Toole thought, well, we're going to do something different. We're going to come right up the middle. And we're going to, the people that are angry at Justin Trudeau, we could probably get them over. Of course, the Conservatives, they have nowhere else to go. This was his calculus, or someone's calculus there. I don't know whose it was, but he was the messenger of that. And you know what? If Aaron O'Toole would have won that election, he would have been hailed as a political genius. Mm-hmm. And he didn't win. We got O'Tooled, as I like to say. And now, of course, he's like, here's what you never do. You never try to out Trudeau, because Trudeau's the real deal when it comes to Trudeauing. And so I don't know. I think we've tried that experiment. It didn't work. And we just kind of got to go back to the roots, stand up for what's right, show the evidence, and hope that most Canadians will somehow wake up, put their elbows down, wake up and go, yeah, this is a mess. This isn't like Canada used to be 15 years ago.
Sheila, I think Rod makes a brilliant point.
Sure.
I'd forgotten about the 2021 election. I guess that's how horrific it is. But I do remember how Justin Trudeau came out of the gate with not one bad week, because certainly not one bad week does an election campaign make, but he had two atrocious weeks. And Aaron O'Toole, by contrast, had two superb weeks in the early going. And then to Rod's point, what did Aaron O'Toole start to do? Well, he started to talk about, gun legislation as in a gun grab. He started to talk about carbon taxes again. Yep. And he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. So we have proof that, being Liberal Light doesn't work when, you're dealing with a conservative base. And for those Liberals out there, if I was a Liberal voter, Sheila, why am I drinking new Coke when I can have Coke Classic?
Yeah, this is a failed strategy over and over again. When the old PCs in Alberta decided to move towards the middle, it put zero daylight in between them and the NDP. And then all of a sudden we had an NDP government for 4 very dark years. As Doug Ford was talking there, I wrote down the name Aaron O'Toole on my little notepad on my desk because a strategy, by the way, that might work in Ontario will not work in the rest of the country. Do you think for a second that Western conservatives are going to be like, yeah, we need someone who's a little less conservative, a little less blue of a Tory? It just won't work. And when you look at the conservative movement, and this is just the facts, the brain trust of the conservative movement is from the West. The ideas of the conservative movement are largely from the West, but also something that all political parties need, and that's the fundraising. Much of that comes out of the West. And where is Pierre Poilievre running? In one of the darkest blue ridings in the entire country, one of the most conservative places in North America, and I'm factoring Texas into that mix there. And so Doug Ford's advice is be a little less conservative when the infrastructure of the party is sort of receding back to the West. His advice is to be a little less Western. Sure, that'll work out great. That's how you have Carney's kids running the country, because we'll never get rid of them.
No, great point, Sheila. And Richard, to that point, it's not just Doug Ford giving Poilievre advice. I see we have a CBC article, and it states Poilievre tweaks his tone and strategy as he faces a must-win by-election, and he is keeping his senior advisor, Jenny Brin, at least for now. That's what the article says. You know, Richard, I guess what would be worse than taking campaign advice from Doug Ford? It would probably be taking it from the CBC. I will tell you, we covered the election campaign extensively. I was covering the Poilievre rallies, the Poilievre pressers. They say campaigns matter. I think it was an excellent campaign, even though it didn't achieve the intended results. Do you think there's any danger of Poilievre and senior conservatives actually listening to Doug Ford and CBC in terms of pivoting?
Is there a danger? Always. There's always a danger. And I don't know what it's going to take for Pierre Poilievre to shed, some of these people that have his ear that I think are watering down. He does at times, sound like a genuine conservative. At other times, the message, it seems to be pretty weak tea as far as I'm concerned. I think he did run, for the most part, a pretty solid campaign. It should have been a tap-in. I think he stumbled early. I mean, I went to an event and there was a lot of, boo Trump and down with the USA nonsense. He should have walked away from that aspect of the campaign. But for the most part, I mean, I think you're right. I think had it not been for the complete and deliberate collapse, I think, of the NDP, that we would have had a conservative government other than that. But I'm always concerned that there's people surrounding the conservative leader who are willing to water down the tea to get elected. We can't have that.
No, I think you're right, Richard. And Rod, another story I see from the Globe and Mail, the Ontario Progressive Conservatives are scheduling a convention for the same time as Poilievre's leadership review. I don't know what to make of that. I will say that, in politics in our modern world right now, you're pretty much one and done. If you don't deliver, you rarely get a second chance. I would say Pierre Poilievre deserves a second chance based on what I said earlier before throwing to Richard. And really, who's in the wings ready to step up as the federal leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? That's one thing. And what are your thoughts on the Ontario PCs doing their convention around the same time as the mandatory leadership review for the federal party?
Well, I'm not involved in a lot of Ontario politics because I'm from out west, and we focus federally because that's our battle space. Right. But there's a weird friction between Doug Ford and the federal Conservatives, and it's strange to me. I think Doug had come out and said something about like what have the Conservatives ever done for me? And it's funny because I was in Halifax a number of years ago at the leadership convention when we ended up with help me out.
Andrew Scheer.
Pardon me. Yeah, that's right.
Very forgettable at the time, for sure.
Yeah, and there was, I don't know, probably 3,000 people in that room or whatever it was. Yeah. It was a big event, right? Highly produced event. And the conservatives, the federal conservatives, brought Doug Ford in to speak to their audience and their, I guess by extension, their funding, audience, right? Their base, and gave him all kinds of opportunities like that. And it's just interesting. It's I guess sometimes people forget, but I don't know what Doug is. So some people speculate that Doug Ford's aspiration has become the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, which would, I mean, I've been wrong before, but I think that would never happen because conservatives are so sick of, the Aaron O'Toole experience and whatnot, and some of the other voices wanting to water down the message. So I don't know. I think Pierre's pretty safe, at least for now, because as you said, there's no one waiting in the wings. If not Pierre, who? And he very well might have taken some really good lessons from this particular election, which he had to run against somebody he wasn't, accustomed to. So I don't know. I think Pierre probably does deserve another shot, and Doug Ford, I don't consider him a conservative at any level.
Well, that's our show for the day and for the week. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, good night, and keep fighting for freedom.